You saw the aerials, this area where this little girl disappeared from. Here is Summerwell's mother, Candus, speaking to WJHL.
Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone.
Puzzling. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Still with us, retired crime lab director for the San Diego Police Department, Jennifer Shen, and joining us, a reporter from WJHL who's been covering this case in depth. Ansley Daniel is with us as well. Ansley, thanks so much for joining us. And let me start with you. What's the latest tonight in this search for Summer Wells?
The latest tip count from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is at 650 tips this evening. None of those have led to Summer, unfortunately, and they are still looking out for that red truck that you mentioned. Since that was put out over the weekend, there's been no sighting, and again, no credible tips leading to where Summer could be tonight, 2 weeks after she was reported missing.
All right, Ansley, describe, I saw some aerials there. I've got a flavor for it, but you're much closer to all this. Describe the home, the neighborhood. I mean, because I'm trying to get in my mind how someone could get to that home to abduct this girl and get away without anyone necessarily from the home or notice or see. How would you describe the area, access to the home, etc.?
This area here is very mountainous. It's very rural, as you heard the incident commander mention earlier. It is definitely a tough terrain for these crews to be searching in. It's also very hot here. That area where Summer lives, her home is kind of far off from the road. I'd say it's maybe half a mile to 3/4 of a mile off of the main road in the Beach Creek area. And her home does sit up on a hill. It is fairly difficult to get up to. I agree with you there. But I will say that here are some other issues that these first responders and rescuers are dealing with in this area, but especially before they scaled back, were the communications issues. That is very rural, as I mentioned before. There's not a lot of cell service, and there also have been issues with Hawkins County's radio system for first responders, as well as 911 calls and things of that nature, which also caused some other issues in this search as well.
And one more question along the lines of the terrain and everything else. For someone to abduct this child, would they have to know where that home is, or are you going to casually drive by that home? Or would you have to target that home and say, okay, I know there's a home up there, and I know there's some kids. I'm going to park my car here. I'm going to go to that home. I mean, if you drove, can you drive the car all the way up to the house? Would people in the house not be able to see it? I mean, this is the part that I'm not quite putting together because it seems like it's so remote to me, but I haven't been there.
It is very far back off of the road. In my opinion, you do probably need a reason to go up to this house. It's not just a place that you would drive up. And Ben Hill Road is also not really a road that you would drive up to either. However, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has not identified that this could be an abduction yet. They just continue to say that the circumstances surrounding what happened to Summer are unclear, and that does hold true for us as well. We have heard that she could have just walked off, but again, we believe that they would have found her by now if that was the case. So there are just, like you said, a lot of unknowns, but this area is kind of far back, and the home is up on a hill, so you would most definitely have to have a reason to go up there.
All right, Jennifer Shen, if we're talking about an abduction, I guess one of the challenges that we heard from Ansley is cell service, right? One way we often kind of try to figure out whose cell phone is pinging off the towers, who is in the area, and it creates leads sometimes for investigators. Going to be tough to do that in this one, huh, Jennifer?
It will be tough to do that, and it looks like in this case, you really need to find her to find evidence. There just doesn't seem to be any evidence of any kind, and I agree. It's pretty remote, and for someone to have gone there and taken her specifically, then you wonder if that person had been watching her, if that was something that had been planned, because it's not something you would just sort of drive by and it's a moment of opportunity sort of abduction, if that's what happened.
Right, and again, this is what the parents are saying they believe happened, that there was some sort of an abduction. Ansley, we also heard 40 registered sex offenders within the zip code. How geographically, though, I got to think that zip code's probably pretty spread out. It's not like there's 40 people right next door.
It is very spread out. That area, another thing that law enforcement mentioned, it, like you said, it is very spread out. There were a lot of people there that have large patches and chunks of land. And again, it's so spread out that people aren't on top of each other like they would be in a typical neighborhood. And a lot of these people do typically have abandoned buildings and other things on their property as well that kind of adds into that search issue as well. But like you mentioned, 40 sex offenders in that area, they could really be spread out compared to a typical neighborhood setting.
Let me ask you, Jennifer, about, she's 5 years old. I mean, and it seemed like Mom said within a few minutes they realized something was going on here. How far is a 5-year-old going to be able to get? I mean, so, you go to the mall, the kids, they kind of dart off. We've seen that happen. This is rough terrain, though, Jennifer.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of surprising to me that they could lose her in 2 minutes. So you wonder how long it was. Maybe it seemed like 2 minutes. Maybe it's a little bit longer. And the terrain is rough, and it would be scary for a 5-year-old to be out there alone in that. So with all those people searching and using the kind of search techniques that they are, if she was there, it seems like they would have found her. So that is certainly concerning.
Ansley, what do we know about this maroon red vehicle that was mentioned? What are the circumstances surrounding that?
All we know is that that vehicle was in the area around the time Summer went missing. We were told that it was part of the investigation for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to receive trail camera footage and surveillance video from nearby homes, and that is where that truck was believed to be picked up on. We were told that they could have been in the area as well the night before around the same time. They also conducted a roadblock in that area, but since they put that call out over the weekend, we are told that they have not found the driver of that truck. But they've continued to stress that that is just a witness who might know what happened, and they are not considered to be a suspect.
All right. Ansley Daniel, WJHL, doing great work. Thank you so much. Jennifer Shen, always appreciate your insight as well. Thank you.